Guys, so it's Chris at Inspired Body Transformation here. What I want to do in today's video is talk all about emotional eating. Now, the reason I want to do that is because I find that with a lot of my clients, it's something that really sort of lets them down in the results, and it's certainly not something that they can help. And it's sometimes some people realise that they don't even do it. So what I thought I would do before I go into explaining what emotional eating is and how it can affect and that sort of stuff is actually find out for you whether you are an emotional eater. So I've got 6 questions. Now, what I want you to do is mark them out of 1 to 5. So if you get a sheet of paper, all you need to do is, or your phone or something like that, you just need to write basically 1 through to 5. And then 5 is strongly agree, and 1 is strongly disagree. So if I say and you strongly disagree, you put 1. If it's sort of okay, if it's sort of right, you put 3. If it's completely, truly right, you put a 5. So question number 1 is, I often snack late at night. So if you always snack late at night, you'd put a 5. If it's something that you never do, you put a 1. If it's something that you rarely do, maybe a 2 or a 3. So question number 1 is I often snack late at night. Number 2 is that when I feel stressed, I eat more. So again, if that's something that's definitely true, you put a 5. If it's something that's not true, you put a 1. I eat more when I'm lonely. So that's number 3. So I eat more when I'm lonely. Number 4 is I often regret what I've eaten as soon as I've eaten it. So again, 1 to 5. So if that's absolutely true and you always regret what you've eaten just after you've eaten it, then that's a 5. If it's not true whatsoever, you put a 1. So number 5 is I eat food when I feel under pressure. So 1 to 5 on that. And then the last question is number 6 is eating gives me pleasure. So if eating gives you pleasure, it's number 5. Again, if it's not true whatsoever, you'd put a number 1, and if it's somewhere in between, so you put the 1 to 5. So what you want to do now is tally it up. So it'll be out of 30. So the highest score you could have had is a 30 if you strongly agree with all of those questions, and the lowest score you could have is a 6 if you strongly disagree with it. Now, if your score is a 6, then you probably don't need to carry on watching this unless it's something that interests you. If your score is 20 or above, then I would suggest that you do have the traits of an emotional eater. So what actually is an emotional eater then? Now, the emotional eater essentially will often use food to compensate for something that is lacking in their life. So they might turn to food to stifle feelings of boredom or loneliness or stress. The emotional eater will often use foods to change a negative mood. So if they're feeling down, they'll use food to deal with their emotions. And some examples of emotional eaters are people who, for instance, feel unattractive. So they will often eat to drown their sorrows, basically. Maybe people who've had a bad day at work and they'll get in and they'll just stuff their face with whatever they can get their hands on. So that's the sort of examples of a couple of people who are emotional eaters. But often it's the satisfaction that they have when they are eating. Maybe they feel in control of that. It can often be really short-lived, so they can end up with feelings of guilt and self-sorrow and things like that, which can actually end up sparking another bout of emotional eating. So what can end up happening, it's like a cycle, and it can go on and on and on. So, like I say, some of my clients find that they'll have a really good week, and then something will happen, and then they'll turn to emotional eating to compensate for that, and then they'll just get stuck in that cycle. And what starts off as maybe one bout of emotional eating becomes a day, 2 days, and then it can just spiral out of control. So, what can you actually do to overcome it then? And there are a few different things. Probably the most important thing is to actually learn when this happens, and so find out what your mood is at that time. So the way you can do this is by keeping a food journal is probably the best thing to do. So you keep a food journal, and what you do is you report on your moods for that, because what that'll what that'll allow you to do is basically identify moments when the episodes happen. So when you do start emotionally what you can do is look back at that moment and say, right, well, I was feeling stressed at work. And what you might find is, when you look back over the course of a week, you'll be able to figure out when your moods were bad. So what time of day it is, what weekdays of the week it is, maybe. Because what might happen is you might be great on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but then on a Thursday, Friday, it becomes a really stressful 2 days for you, maybe hitting targets or something like that. And that's when you turn to the food. So what you can then do is start identifying patterns that occur. And then from there, what you can do is say, right, on a Thursday and a Friday, again, keeping with that example, is when I tend to emotional eating. So what I'm going to do is on a Thursday and a Friday, I'm going to keep those foods out of my house. I'm not going to have them in the house at all. Or if you normally stop at a fast food place on the way home or something, what you can do is change your route and just become conscious of it. Another way is like healthy coping. So again, but you need to start identifying the negative feelings without basically turning to food. So what you can do is find something that you enjoy and replace it. So a lot of people maybe go to like meditation or go to like yoga or something like that. Basically, anything that you can do. My personal one is exercise. So it's one of them things. What you basically do is you take those negative feelings and you replace it with a coping mechanism that can get you there. But one of the primary things to do, what you have to do, and what most people don't do, is they don't recognise what it is that is causing these emotional eating bouts. And once you can do that, then you can really start to move forward as well. Because then what you can do, like I say, is realize what it is that's causing it, and then you'll become much more aware. And when you become aware, you can start doing the things that basically change it. So that is probably the key thing to do. So if you have scored highly on that, the biggest thing that I'd recommend for you to do is start keeping a food journal and keeping a mood diary to go alongside it with that. But if you've got any questions for me, please feel free to ask. I'm always happy to help. And that's it from me from this week. If you like what you hear, please subscribe. And like I say, any questions, just pop them in the comments and I will answer as soon as I can. But yeah, I hope that's helped and I will speak to you all soon. Bye-bye.